This past weekend at the Blaze Leadership Summit, Tucker Carlson interviewed 5 of the GOP presidential candidates, and he absolutely wrecked through some of them. We'll get into my analysis of each of their interviews and how it went. Then, pictures of the new live action film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs are leaked, and it turns out it's going to be a Hispanic woman playing Snow White, and all the dwarfs will be tall. Then, lastly, RFK Jr. was caught on camera saying COVID-19 was ethnically targeted against blacks and Caucasians. We'll get into what exactly he said and the source that he got his information from, and if the media portrayed it in the right way. I'm Solo, and this is the Solo Show. So, this past weekend, Tucker Carlson held the first GOP debate on Blaze TV. It was quite different than past debates. This was like a more one-on-one interview with Tucker. Something similar to what CNN and Fox does with the town halls. 5 candidates showed up: Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence, and then Donald Trump did not attend it, mostly because he obviously is leading the debate by double digits in the frontrunner, Ron DeSantis, so he doesn't really have an actual reason to want to go. But Tucker absolutely destroyed some of the candidates. So with Nikki Haley, he left her speechless and stunned when he asked who bombed the Nord Stream pipeline. I don't really think she has a leadership mentality and kind of the president for the GOP that we're willing to want. So I don't think her presidential run is going to be successful. I just think it's just not there, honestly. So he left her speechless with that. That was an absolute negative and kind of wrecked her presidency or presidential run. Then with Tim Scott, he ended his presidential run when he said, Tucker Carlson said this: Mexico sends fentanyl into the U.S., killing hundreds of thousands, and Russians haven't killed any Americans. Why is Russia our sworn enemy and Mexico is our ally? Tim Scott responds with, we should send more aid to Ukraine while trying to use as many resources to stop fentanyl from crossing the border. Then Tucker sees that how dud his response was and just says, interesting, and then moves on. So this shows Tim Scott didn't get the point. The average American doesn't care about foreign policy. They care what's happening in our own backyard. And what he should have done is said, yeah, he's going to slam down hard on Mexico. He's going to stop fentanyl from coming through. Not just we will try to stop. Now you can't try as a presidential candidate. You got to say we will do this. It's not really selling. Then next up is Mike Pence. Now conservatives are divided on how his interview went, mostly since he was taken out of context, and these super MAGA-loving supporters ran with it completely out of context. They, of course, don't like Mike Pence since what happened in 2020, since Donald Trump said he could have not signed over the presidency to Biden from something completely made up. It was really, really weird. So what happened was a Republican president candidate and former Vice President Mike Pence clashed with Tucker Carlson during a combative interview on Friday in Iowa. Pence's interview at the Family Leadership Summit focused on the war in Ukraine, his beliefs on what happened during the January 6th riot and the U.S. Capitol, and his views on the 2020 election. Let me see if I can find the part. So, Tucker Carlson says, I'm sorry, Mr. President, have you, or Mr. Vice President, I'm not sure if I said that right. I know you're running for president. You're distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks, Carlson said. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years. Drive around, there's not one city that's gotten better in the United States, and it's visible. Our economy has degraded, the suicide rates has jumped, public filth and disorder and crime have increased. Carlson continued, and yet your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who receive tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask. Like, where's the concern for the United States in that? Carlson said. Pence responded, well, it's not my concern. And that was the clip right there. It stopped. It didn't continue. But Pence responded after that, Tucker, I've heard that routine from you before, but that's not my concern, Pence said. I'm running for president in the United States because I think this country is in a lot of trouble. I think Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. And as president of the United States, we're going to restore law in our cities. He continued, we're going to secure our border. We're going to get this economy moving in, and we're going to make sure that we have men and women on our courts at every level that will stand for the right to life and defend all the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution. So, conservatives, not just Republicans in general, stopped it right there when he said that's not my concern, and assuming he meant American cities, but no, he was talking about Ukrainians. That's not his concern. We need to fix our own home before we can go fix somebody else's home. And it was absolutely insane that they took it out of context and just ran with it. And then let's see, Vivek Ramaswamy did an amazing job. One of the highlights from his interview was about Ukraine. He said, "There is no basis for us to send our young men and women to defend somebody else's border while we should be using our military to secure our own border." That's all Tim Scott had to say, and Tim Scott would have been highlighted as well. But no, Vivek, he's a very promising politician. He has a really good belief system. I fairly like the guy from what I've seen, but he's just not going to win. He's not known enough. He's not big enough. I don't think he's been in politics before this. So it's going to be really hard for him to actually get there. But I'm hoping to see him somewhere in Washington in the future. And then lastly, the candidate that I love, Ron DeSantis. And I think he did a great job. There was nothing where it was like there was no gotcha moments. But I do understand now why Donald Trump leads him by double digits. And it's really because of his personality. He has a very monotone type of personality. He's a little too serious. He's not up there with energy and all that. He kind of has the same voice throughout everything. But I love him as a politician. He's doing a great job in Florida, and I would have loved to seen him in the White House. But I also think he's not going to win. I think it's going to be Biden and Trump once again. But candidates of the Democratic Party, or a candidate, RFK Jr., who I think has more of a grasp on reality than Biden, and also looks more appealing to the moderates and the most average Democrat. He was caught last week saying that one of the theories of COVID-19 is that it may have been created to target certain ethnicities. Now, according to Politico, a Democratic presidential candidate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., denied allegations of racism and anti-Semitism Saturday after he reportedly suggested COVID-19 could have been genetically engineered to reduce risk to Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people. Kennedy, a longtime vaccine skeptic who's running a long shot primary campaign against Joe Biden, said during a Tuesday night press event that COVID-19 was targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. He went on to say the people who are most immune are the I'm gonna look this up once I'm done with this podcast, but Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. Now, he then did walk it back, and he said he did not think that the Jews created it and were the ones behind the whole COVID-19 conspiracy theory. He just referenced a study that said that the people who were most affected were Caucasians and black people, and the most immune were the Chinese and the Jews. And even though what he said was relatively true, and the study that he cited actually did say that, he's being absolutely grilled by the mainstream media. And I want to say this is because he is growing in the polls, and he is the closest threat to Biden. So the Democrats, they're getting behind one candidate, and they're full pushing Biden for 2024. No one else is running against him, even though I feel like Gavin Newsom would have a pretty good shot at beating him. Kamala Harris isn't doing it. I know she's not a good politician, but she has a good shot running behind Joe Biden. You don't see AOC, who was predicted to run, and I believe another one was Pete Buttigieg, which would have been horrible, but he's very popular among Democrats, so I wouldn't be surprised. But no, they're all getting behind Joe Biden, and RFK Jr. is growing in the polls, and they think he's going to be a threat to Joe Biden, so let's absolutely grill him. They called him an anti-Semite and a bunch of other things, and didn't actually reference the article he was doing. And yeah, I mean, this was obviously the mainstream media trying to eliminate the threat to Biden. Lastly, some photos of the live-action film by Disney, Snow White, were leaked, and it revealed how woke Disney has continued to grow. And again, they've been losing money since they started this woke culture battle. The first thing that happened was Snow White is being played by a Hispanic woman, even though it specifically says in the story her skin was as white as snow, her cheeks as rosy as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. And she said she was called Snow White. And the next thing about the dwarfs is they're not dwarfs. They're all relatively tall, I would say. I would say none of them fall below 5'5". So they abandoned the original characters. And let me say this. I would not care about who plays what characters if the left did not make everything about race. I mean, they make race such a big deal. And Disney caves to the woke agenda, and everything has to be diverse and politically correct. But just imagine for 5 minutes, what would happen if Black Panther was played by a white man? Or if Princess Tiana from Princess and the Frog were played by a white person? The left will 100% freak out, maybe even burn down a few cities. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, it is absolutely insane. You would think that they cast historically, whatever characters and continue to carry on that tradition. And that's why in all the animated ones, they all look how the original story described them. But hey, it's what I guess it's going to be whatever. That's all I have for today, guys. Just go ahead and leave a like, comment, and share. I'll go ahead and see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.